I love that. I really love that. That is great.
Yeah, because in the now, we're not going through our lists of regrets. We're not, it's like like my mother-in-law, the ego becomes lighter and the soul, there's a gravity. Welcome to Little Connections with Bernard and Kirsten, a conversation series where two friends explore the spiritual in everyday life. This is episode 3, where time is deep and wide. This is part 2 of 2. We're glad you're here. Scott and I were sitting on the deck doing a meditation together the other morning, and I had my eyes closed, and he said, "Did you see that?" And I know he could hear the wings flapping, and it just came like right by us while we were doing that.
So, and that kind of leads me into one of the things that really hit me today, finishing the movie, is they're sitting together in bed, later on after they've done their sailing and they're thinking about life. And Benjamin's character, Benjamin's character, Brad Pitt says, you know, time passes, nothing lasts. And I kind of, it's a shame.
Yeah, that's that thing of we want to hold on. We want to hold on to what's good, but everything in part is good because it's passing away, because it's fleeting.
Yeah.
It's
And
this
I
this
thought, like, my cats are turning 3, you know, like they were just kids. Maybe it's like your 3 children, they were just babies and kids.
yeah. Yeah. It's like love opens us to pain.
I think we have good times of our lives and we're really enjoying it, or we're not suffering, or we're have just come on the other side of something hard. And like the movie talks about, we don't know what's coming for us, so something could be right around the corner. And that's why I wanted to bring up, time passes and nothing lasts, because we may not appreciate where we are right now. And I think that as we are on a journey and not trying to, we're all going to go someplace in some way, in the same way. Like in Siddhartha, everyone has a different path, and we all have end up the same place. But if we don't appreciate or be thankful for where we are right now, like me talking to you, or this last weekend, whatever you did on your Father's Day, or whatever I did, if we don't appreciate that, it's just sad. It's a shame because nothing really lasts. Like everything you see behind me, or everything in my life, or whatever it's in your life, it's just like, you know, deck of cards. Everything could fall apart. I don't want to be too like negative, but it's just sort of that's sort of existential a little bit. Like our existence is very fragile.
It's true. And so it's true in the linear sense. But then there's this other sort of time that breaks in to linear time, and it's like these moments of we're speaking of the feeling of the savoring when we can be present. It's like time opens up and we feel it.
Yeah, I think that's true. Where the feelings come in, when you have that kind of connection, you
Yeah.
know, time slows down and it just has this a wrapping feeling of like electricity, or, you know, chills, or a real like wow.
Yeah. Which is there's this quote that's coming up in me now. I have the book somewhere, but he says all of these moments lie close together. It's like they're always there, but it's really about our ability to see them. So some of these practices like meditation, or these moments like you're speaking of, coming back to the present, allows us to foster the habit of
appreciation or
right
thankfulness for where we are. Like
gratitude.
on that note, I have stopped for the last few months doing self care, you know, doing meditations or journaling as much, you
Mm.
know. And I looked at this journal I bought that has like checkoff lists of like energy and self care box. What are you doing for today? And that just reminded me, yes, those are very important in order to be thankful for what we have and not just be driving or walking through life, just walking through time.
Right. It's almost like we can go on autopilot or sort of numb or be, asleep, not only to it, like it's something like gets taken the edge off. So maybe the pain, it takes the edge off the pain, but it also takes the edge off the joy and the connection. So sometimes when these like traumatic things happen, it breaks through that autopilot. Even when you get really bad news, suddenly you're almost more grateful for life than you are when things are going along.
And in some ways, what you just said, life is painful in a lot of ways. So it's easier to be on like autopilot and just be driving or walking along life and doing what you got to do than be present or feeling life, because there's a lot of pain in life. And we often plan for times of joy or fun times. We look forward to those. And I was thinking about that, you know, why are we always trying to do fun things? Why are we always like trying to make stuff happen? Why can't we just like enjoy life now or, you know, whatever we're doing? And I think it's because life is painful. It's getting
Mm-hmm.
older. It's like developing new physical pains, mental pains, relationship strains. So we make activities that we look forward to that are fun to kind of get to places and get through time so we don't have to focus on the hard part of life.
Mm, yeah. And yet, we're probably never going to feel better than we are now. We'll never be younger than we are now, right? Like, there's that something, I don't know why that happens to me or occurs to me a lot of times where I'm like, one day I will look back on this moment and wish I had been there and wish I had been really present. And it was right after we had to put our dog Polly down. She was 16 and her dementia had progressed to the point where she was really suffering. And I went to get burritos. Scott and Mallory were here, and I went to get burritos, and I was driving back, and it felt like one of those things people describe as a thin place. Like my spirit just felt so permeable. My heart felt so raw. And I pulled over to the side of the road and I had this overwhelming sensation that almost like me from the future was saying to me from the present, be here. You'll have wanted to be here. So really be here, you know? And I recorded a voice memo because it was so fresh.
Wow.
And it was like there was this something outside of time that was telling me it's not always going to be like this.
Yeah.
You could lose everything tomorrow. I mean, we've lost everything before. And so it's like there's this awareness of like, but even still, I fall asleep to that, right? And I'm complaining about being
Yeah,
too
I
hot.
saw a
Or,
friend. I saw a friend on Saturday, and he said, "Do you want to hear the good news?" And I said, "Yeah, I do want to hear the good news." So he told me in 2 months his wife is having a baby. So I thought about it over the last couple of days, and I sent him a text. You know, you ought to be thankful for maybe these last 2 months instead of, you know, you don't know how you'll look back on these last 2 months once you have your daughter and realize how special these 2 months were in preparing for having your daughter.
mm, yeah.
Yeah,
Like in other words, don't rush. Let it
yeah,
like be in this. Yeah, yeah. It's like every time something is coming up. It's so tempting just to live in the future.
You were saying like, and we're never getting younger. This is like the best we're gonna feel at this age. Well, that's what's cool about the movie. Everything goes backwards. He starts old, he ends up young, and so it gives you a real paradigm or a way to think about life, the way we live it, because everyone except for him is getting older and dying, and he's getting younger.
What is it like for you in that opening scene when the clockmaker has just gone through this terrible loss? His son has died in the war, and he is commissioned to make this massive clock, and the president comes and everybody's here to see the revealing of this clock.
I
And
said
they
it's very hard to watch because you haven't really been like brought into the movie. It's a setup piece for the end, and it's setting the stage for about time, how we're living on a timeline in our lives, and that if the clockmaker, had a chance, he'd like to roll time back so he could get back the time he didn't know that he wasn't going to have with his son, or you know, and then the if you see at the end, you see the clock at the end, and they move to a digital clock, and then his clock is just washed away in the water of Katrina.
I didn't even notice the digital clock. I remember seeing it in storage, but it just was, for you have all these, you've seen all of these nuances, so you have a better grasp of it than I do, but I hadn't picked up that detail.
Well, they talked about at the end, they put up a new clock, and they show it's a digital clock. They don't say what kind of clock it is. You have to pick that up, and then they show it's pushed away, and the water runs in.
Yeah. The story of the clockmaker's son really connects to what we're just talking about. I think, in a way, what we've just been talking about recognizing we want to be here, because, like you're saying, the clockmaker wishes he would have been able to savor that time with his son. And in a way, it's like he was sending a message. That's the sense I had of it, that he was communicating something true.
Well, like with me, wish I could go back, appreciate or spend more time with my dad.
Yeah.
You know, um, maybe there's someone with you that you wish you could have gone back and spent more time with.
Hmm. Yeah. I think even if the person didn't die, there's still that awareness that things are going to change, right? And we're not going to live near each other anymore, or we're not going to go to the same church, or we're not going to live in the same city. And
They say in the movie, our lives are defined by opportunities, including the ones we miss. So going like what you're just saying, we may not be in the same city, we may not be, in the same stage of our lives. I can go back and look at college and make certain things if I had done differently, where it would put me in a different place. And I wish I could roll back time and maybe redo some of those.
mm-hmm. Yeah. And so ultimately, for me, it's that sense of what does it look like to live from this awareness that is demonstrated in the movie? What does it look like to take those things we wish we could go back to and live different in the present, or like incorporate some sort of practices that help us.
Well, maybe it's just get what you're saying, and maybe it's just asking that question every day, or in a journal, writing about that, or, holding that in your hand as you do breathing every day. Because I don't necessarily think there's an answer to what that looks like.
I think you're absolutely right. There's a million ways, but there is something about the feeling of it, like we're talking about, when we watch that movie, the feeling of it is so the point. It's poignancy,
Yeah.
is the feeling. Um,
Well, that's
I
why
can't
at the end of the
describe.
movie, when the it talks about everyone, you can be a storyteller, you can be a dancer, and it fades to the clock and the water rushing in. I think the feeling is just beauty. Life is beautiful, you
Yeah,
know.
life is beautiful and it's fleeting, and there is something about. I mean, there's that practice, memento mori, is this meaning of my favorite television show. There's a wedding. It's kind of in somebody's house. It's like a small occasion, and they're Jewish, and so the one of the kids like does that thing where you stand on a glass, or what, you stomp on
Yeah,
a
you
glass, and
crush the glass.
yeah, and she says, woe for we all must die. Woe for we all must
Whoa,
die,
whoa,
right? And it was
that's
like
like
this
pretty
like
morbid.
memento mori, like so at a time of joy and celebration is this visceral reminder that this is to be savored. We must recognize the beauty because it's passing away.
Well, like I was talking earlier, we plan for exciting times. We plan for like celebrations to make sure we enjoy part of life because it's so beautiful. Otherwise, we're on autopilot and we just go through life and we don't really savor it because of all the pain or things we have to do just to get through life.
Yeah. And there's this beautiful recognition that we're human, right? Like you were saying earlier, it's so painful. So part of us, it's almost unbearable to live like this all of the time, right? To live with our heart open all of the time. So we have to be gentle with ourselves and compassionate for our realities, and also construct our lives with intention and consciously, like we're talking about, weave in moments to return to that feeling of poignancy in all the ways. Sometimes we weave it in intentionally, and sometimes it sweeps us off our feet, and all we can do is like let it wash over us like a wave.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it. Um, and I think in there's also a place for a little spirituality, whether you're Christian or Buddhist or just spiritual, because however you relate to a higher power or the energy of the universe gives you a connection to a way to appreciate life as you live it.
Right. I mean, every spiritual tradition is encouraging us to live in the now, because in the now is where time is deep and wide, where it is not just what we read on the clock, but what we feel with the heart.
Mm.
Yeah.
I wish I lived more in the feeling. And like you said, how can we be there? How can we do that? So you were asking that question. I said, I don't know if there's an answer, but if I can ask that question, regularly, that keeps me closer to maybe a more real and special life
Mm.
as opposed to just thinking about stuff and looking for fun times and trying to, you know, look for times where I could forget about, times going on and who like in the movie said, we don't know what's coming for us. You never know what's coming for you. So appreciating every day, not trying to like find activities to just look forward to so I don't think about, oh, I gotta wait. I don't think about what I'm doing now, but in 3 days I'll be doing this and that'll be fun. Instead, I'll be thinking, oh, today's a great day. I'll relish it. I'll appreciate it. I'll go for a walk. I'll call my mom or I'll pet my cats, you, your dog, Nitro, or give Scott a hug, or call your son, or have lunch with your daughter, in the everyday, things that we find a way to appreciate what we have now.
So, this is a quote from my favorite author, spiritual teacher, who's really speaking about this other way of experiencing time, the depth of time, and how living in the now kind of opens up our heart and our perception. And so she's speaking of the movie Babette's Feast. And she says, if only we could see and trust that all of our ways of getting there, all our courses over time, our good deeds, our evil deeds, our regrets, our compulsive choosings and the fallout from those choosings, our things done and paths never actualized, are quietly held in an exquisite fullness that simply poises in itself, then pours itself out in a single glance of the heart. If only we could glimpse that, even for an instant, then perhaps we would be able to sense the immensity of love that seeks to meet us at the crossroads of the now when we yield ourselves into it.
I love that. I really love that. That is great.
Yeah, because in the now, we're not going through our lists of regrets. We're not, it's like like my mother-in-law, the ego becomes lighter, and the soul, there's a gravity where we have the perspective that, okay, none of those things ultimately at the end of our life, right? Like Benjamin Button, when he's sitting on the bench behind his dad, and his dad is literally passing away, and he just wants to see this one more sunrise before he dies. He's not on that bench going, oh my gosh, what does that person think of me? Or even the guilt of how could I have left my son on a step for somebody else to care for? He was simply in this moment of gratitude and time and presence. And
And I think with our lives, if we can live more in the now and be more feeling based to the now, not necessarily giving up rational thoughts, but I think we can make better decisions as far as what direction or goals or area we want to move in our lives.
yeah, that's so true. That almost living with this perspective of really in the now we can see, in the now we know things. And so rather than trying to fix it outside of ourselves, it's just a good reminder to keep coming back to the now. Because in the now, we can see.
Yeah, that's all we really can see. Sort of like you talked about in the first episode, you're headed towards a goal, but it's where the things coming towards you meet.
Mm.
That's what is the reality created. You can't plan necessarily where you're trying to get to. You can only be in the now, headed in a direction.
Yeah.
And if you're living in the now and you're feeling now, you're making good decisions for a direction as opposed to big ideas or places you want to be in the future.
Mm. Yeah. When it's like our head, our heart, and our body are all here in the now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to bring it back to what we talked about in the beginning, relating to Benjamin Button and being in the now, is everything we do now predestined to happen, or is it all just by chance? We mentioned, or I asked you to listen to Casey Musgrave's "The Architect" song.
Mm-hmm.
You know, is it just happenstance, or is it all a plan, So in the movie, if you'll see by the end, it does bring up those questions and leaves it up for you to decide. And we've sort of talked about it here to kind of see what you think.
Yeah. Isn't that what all good art does? Is like not impose, but like invite, just be like, okay. The artist offers it as this generous gift.
Yes. And that's the grace we need to receive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks for this wonderful, tender conversation, Bernard. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Kirsten. Me too.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for joining us for the 3rd episode of Little Connections with Bernard and Kirsten. In the show notes, you'll find clips that we referenced and the trailer for the movie. Please consider liking, subscribing, or sharing this conversation with someone who might appreciate it. It helps these little connections keep finding their way. We're grateful you're here.